I'm vibing out right now, cooling. I actually came across something that I did hear about, which is a solid reminder, man, because man, it's one of the things that I personally think is going to actually take place here in America. So let me actually pull this story up. I don't know if you guys are aware, but Cuba is going through a little something right now. And my friends, looks like it's a little bit dicey. Let me get the details on this story. Short little 2-minute clip from NBC News where they, I guess, are going to tell us a little bit more about what took place in Cuba. If you weren't aware, the power grid went out in Cuba, folks. The electric grid. I think the electric grid was something that I started talking about on my channel at least 2 years ago. And not to sound like, oh, whatever the case is, but I've had this fear of the power grid. Not fear, but I've had this heightened awareness of the electric power grid, and once you kind of educate yourself on it and kind of learn a little bit of what it is, the things that it affects, you kind of understand the severity of not wanting the power grid to go down or wanting our power grid to be in tip-top shape. But comes to find out that that's not even necessarily the case. If you just kind of do a little bit of, even just like a light level of some Google research on what the U.S. power grid entails and how fragile it is. I did a video on that some time ago. I'll probably repost it somewhere in there. The power grid is very fragile. The power grid goes and doesn't come back, you might as well call it a wrap. Like it'll most likely be a wrap. But nonetheless, I'm saying all that to say that Cuba's power grid went out. Got the story pulled up here. It comes from NBC News. It says Cuba's power grid fails, leaving millions without electricity. Let's go ahead and get some details on this story.
Want to go to Cuba now in the midst of a nationwide blackout after one of the island's major power plants failed, shutting down the electrical grid and leaving the entire island of 10 million people in the dark. The government closed schools, non-essential businesses in this last-ditch effort to release pressure on the system and keep the lights on. But it didn't work. It wasn't enough. It's coming as Cubans are already suffering from shortages of food, fuel, water, medicine as well. Ed Augustin has more from Cuba.
I'm coming to you from the Vedada district of downtown Havana. Behind me, a famous theater. And in front of me, it's just about to come into view as soon as I pass this bush. Hey presto, we have a school. Both of them today in Cuba closed, not just here in Havana, but across the nation. Not a single school opened up today, not a single theater or cinema. Why? The country is going through an almost unprecedented electricity crisis. Cuban Prime Minister Manuel Marrero yesterday, in an emergency address, addressed the nation, saying that power cuts, power outages are going to get worse. They simply, he said, don't have enough money to import all the petrol they need to keep the lights on. And what they're going to have to do, he said, is take measures to reduce consumption. That includes paralyzing, his words, parts of the economy and turning off non-vital services, was the phrase he used, in order to reduce consumption. Across Cuba today, all schools closed to save electricity, all theaters, cinemas also closed, and that will last until at least next week. And then this morning, out of the blue, things went from bad to worse. The main power plant in the whole country, which hasn't received enough maintenance over recent decades, broke down. And that triggered a nationwide power cut. The approximately 10 million people in Cuba, almost all of them, right now, are without power. The Cuban president, Miguel Diaz-Canel, says they're working on it, and it's the absolute priority to get it back online. But people here are worried that the rolling power cuts that they've been used to for the last few years, that in Havana can last upwards of 4 hours, that in other parts of the country can last upwards sometimes of 18 hours, are about to get even worse. Back to you.
So there you heard it, folks. 10 million people throughout the country of Cuba are without power, with no sight of its return. Maybe a week, they say, sometime next week. Guys, I'm not laughing at the situation that's happening in Cuba. It's the thought of us here in America that makes me chuckle. At the thought of us going without power for a week. No internet, no light, no nothing here in America. For a week? Let's give you a week. We wouldn't last. Folks, you understand? We've grown so heavily dependent upon convenience and these electronic devices, Wi-Fi. Convenience has got us in the palm of its hand. And once you wipe out the electric grid, of course, if you're not familiar, the electric grid is the source that powers every single electric device in your community, in your home. Everything that you could think of that needs electricity is sourced from the power grid, essentially. Generators, everything that you can think of, gas pumps, ATMs, cash registers, anything that you can think of that needs the internet or electricity does not work if the grid goes down. You understand? So Cuba with 10 million people is going through that now, with no sight of the electricity coming back anytime soon. I pose the question to you folks, what happens if the US power grid goes down? How long do you think Americans can go without power? That is a question I pose to you all. Let's all put ourselves in the shoes of those that are experiencing this right now in Cuba. And let's imagine if that were us here in America, that our main source of electricity has gone down, as you heard it there. Schools are closed, all essential places are closed, theaters are closed. We've kind of felt that during the pandemic. We already knew, we got a gist of how it feels like to be quarantined and staying home, whatever the case is. But at least we had power, we had AC, we had Wi-Fi. So yeah, people couldn't leave their homes. We were, contained to the confinement of the people around us and our homes. We still had electricity. We still had power, right? Now imagine quarantine with no electricity. Remember, just stop for a second and think of what you were doing in quarantine, and then remove electricity. How long do you think American citizens will last? How long do you think our society will last once it's fully understood that if power is gone and there's no sight of it coming back anytime soon? What do you think we'll do? No cameras. Cameras don't work. Registers don't work. All the Alexa, this, that, blah, 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 internet, nothing works. It's not, call me dramatic, but is that not the beginning of the end here in America? Come on, let's keep it real. Call me dramatic, but you see how people act when, oh no, Outlook is down, Gmail is down for a few hours. People, oh no, what do I do with myself? Everybody's tweeting, everybody's like, oh no. Instagram's down, oh, blah, 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 this is down, that is down. Every other day, they give us a little sample up. It's like little doses, small doses, small doses. Give us a little bit of a feel of how things feel, the things that we're heavily dependent upon every day in and day out, the things that we're heavily relying upon. They give us small doses here and there of these outages. These outages that just seem to just be happening every now and again. These are all test runs, man. Wasn't it just a week ago, 2 weeks ago, no more than a month ago, Bank of America, people didn't have access to specifically Bank of America folks didn't have access to their funds. People were logging into their Bank of America accounts and seeing $0. Imagine waking up, logging into your phone. You might not even have access to your phone, but let's say you log into your Bank of America app or whatever financial institution that you bank with. You log into there, and it says $0. You know for damn sure you should have some money in there. What would you do in that situation when you don't have access to your funds, right? And then with this power grid situation, it's a step further. It's like not only do you not have access to your funds, you don't have access to anything else that runs on electricity. That's why I'd be so fascinated with y'all and y'all Teslas. Y'all want to... You Tesla drivers, bruh, if the grid goes down, what are you going to do? The grid goes down, you're not charging that Tesla. There's no charge no more. I think it does have some gas capabilities as well, too, if I'm not mistaken, those Teslas. But if the cars primarily ran on electricity, then what? And there's a lot of cars that are gas-powered that run heavily dependent upon electricity as well, too. So that's not to say that we're immune. But I don't think people understand the severity of what it means if the power grid was to go down here in America. Again, you just saw the story that happened in Cuba. They're on a few days and counting right now. Cuba's power grid fails, leaving 10 million people without power. What if America gets a turn and it says Americans' power grid fails, leaving how many million people without power? Yeah, we'll do a day, maybe first 48 hours. Once it sets in like, hey, power's down and there's no foreseeable future that is coming back anytime soon, people are going to get antsy. Refrigerators are not working, cash registers is not working, so you think they're paying by cash again? You think people are waiting? Supplies are low. Again, think about all the things that are dependent upon electricity and systems, medication deliveries, all the things that you were dependent upon. There's so many things that entails the internet. You think it's just, oh no, I just can't go on Instagram or I just can't go on Twitter or whatever. Nah, it's more than that. We didn't say the internet, we said electricity. We didn't say the internet goes down, it's the internet and everything else that runs electricity. Do you understand what that means? And again, call it dramatic, but I know here in America, I see how you guys act when a little power storm puts you out of power for 2-3 hours. Y'all start losing y'all minds. Oh, the power is out for a few hours. A bad storm came through. Power is out. And y'all act like y'all don't know what to do for those 2-3 hours. Now I'm talking months. Let's say the power grid goes down. Electricity don't come back for a few months, 2-3 months. Then what? Then what? Sounds like the ingredients of a disaster waiting to happen. Because again, if you do your research and find out exactly how fragile the actual U.S. grid is, it's serious business. It's super. I was baffled when I found out how fragile. Just type in, how fragile is the U.S. power grid? I did. Let me pull up this video, man. I spoke on this, bro. I spoke on this 2 years ago. and it's not like this is something, and they've been fears of the power grid a long time ago. People are well aware how fragile the U.S. power grid is, bro. But youngins, I don't think people understand for real. Like, how vulnerable is America's electric power grid? Hold on.
Nobody talks about that. Because our government is not getting us prepared for events that experts say are inevitable.
4 p.m. on August 14th, 2003, and an unthinkable disaster becomes reality. A cascade of power failures shuts down electricity in southeast Canada and across 8 northeastern states. Cities like New York are brought to a complete standstill. Hundreds of people are trapped in subway tunnels, while the traffic above becomes a nightmare of gridlock.
2 years ago, I spoke on this, saying the power grid is fragile as hell. We better get some reinforcements. The power grid goes down, just call it a wrap. That's just like, you know when who was it, the governor or whoever said like that bold statement she made about Hurricane Helene or Helen or whatever the hurricane name was. When the hurricane came and the lady said, hey, evacuate or die, evacuate or you're going to die. Remember when she said that for the hurricane? Honest to God, I would say that is the severity of the power grid. If the power grid goes down, you might as well call it the equivalent. Start like, if the power grid goes down and it's gone for more than 2 weeks, you might as well just start. That's the end for us. Because again, we're too heavily dependent upon electricity. We've made ourselves we're so dependent upon convenience. What are you gonna do when your fridge doesn't work? Your home security system doesn't work. Internet doesn't work. All means of communication is gone. Like, what are you gonna do? Food is scarce. People are looting. People are robbing. Only daylight is during the only signs of light is during the daytime. Daytime is the only light. Nighttime falls is the Gotham City. Every man for himself. What would you do? Y'all playing. Me, look, I always said this. This is what I would do. Power grid goes down now. All you gotta do, just eliminate. Hopefully you would have already gathered a few things for yourself, is just like grab what you gotta grab from outside and don't anticipate going outside. Don't think going outside is gonna be a common thing, because even if it's a matter of you going out, you could run into riots and looting outside, or while you're away, looters could come ransack whatever it is that you got hold of for yourself. If the power's gone in America, bro, and it really does become every man for himself, it's gonna get dicey. Yeah, y'all understand? Please, man, on your spare time, please do research the power grid, the U.S. power grid specifically. And again, understand that this is already happening in Cuba. I'm going to follow this story. I'm going to keep following this story.